Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Esoteric-Truth Radio, the show without fear. There is no topic forbidden to us as we delve into the realms where no one else will go. Join us while we touch upon the issues others won't discuss. We are Esoteric-Truth Radio.
First, let me say thank you for joining Scarlett and I on our second live episode of Esoteric-Truth, and a shout-out to Hernando's Hideaway, the best new form around. Tonight we'll be talking about egregores, and here is a small definition. It is an occult concept representing a thought form or collective group mind, an autonomous psychic entity made up of and influencing the thoughts or groups of people. The word egregore derives from the Greek word egregore, meaning watchers, which also translates as Gregory. The word appears in the Septuagint translation of the Book of Lamentations, as well as the Book of Jubilees and the Book of Enoch, even being derived from the word Gregory, which acquired a somewhat negative aspect over time. Now, from the Magician's Dictionary, egregores are watchers, thought-form entities created by visualization, ritual, and such. They come in collective groups. They are somewhat like angels, except that they are relatively mindless and quite willing to follow orders. Some UFOs may actually be egregores. Now, Gabriel Emerson wrote that egregore is the psychic and astral entity of a group. He wrote that all members of a group, a family, a club, a political party, a religion, and even a country not only create egregores, but are physically included in its existence. And because we are socially active, we are all involved in the creation of several egregores at the same time. An example of this would be the evocation of the 72 spirits of the Goetia by the late magician Aleister Crowley, and later re-emerged on the internet. After lying dormant for centuries, Crowley not only evoked them back into public awareness, but the posting of this information on the internet has given these spirits more power than they ever had at the time of Solomon, when they were last known. Now, some of the powerful egregores include Santa, the devil, Jesus. Even collective prayer for a common goal can create an actual egregore. We also have terms like I walk with God, and sometimes you can talk to someone religious that states that they know for a fact that their lives are guided and controlled, including what some would call faith, by a higher being. This is in fact true, but do they know who or what is guiding them? To even get a bit more deep, there are very mentally strong people out there, and egregores can sometimes even be defined as their own personal personality. Ever hear of opposites attract? Well, that may just be how people with very strong egregores explain how they can still be together in a sense without the clashing of their personal egregores. One man or woman's egregore can be another man or woman's angel or demon. I think that it's safe to say that we are all magicians, not because we have cloaks or wands, but because we're taught in many different ways on worshiping beings and symbols and never truly knowing what they stand for. We have the pyramid and the capstone, the winged disc, and even similar things like even our cookies and chips. And when we participate, whether knowingly or not, it should never make us ignorant to worship or invocation of a spirit or entity. What I think makes it dangerous are those that know who the largest of the egregores are and tell others to worship them, such as the largest of the religions, which is Catholicism, Christianity, and the Islamic faith. We have those that have heard or of and seen throughout history that they have stated clearly that the things they have done, been on the part, or were told to commit such atrocities by visits by either angels or demons. We ignore those people as lunatics, and that is because we have no idea that this is indeed a very real thing. The ancient Greeks considered this to be the art of creating gods. And indeed, this may have been how many gods and demigods were created, not by divine power, but by the power of man. The reason why many of the older rituals are used by magicians is because they know what they are capable of doing. The egregores can last for centuries, and with the right ritual can be remanifested if done correctly. Most saints of religions were or are still egregores, and why many people take saints for themselves for certain things they may need in life, including love and money. Here's an interesting tidbit from 1972. It's called the Philip experiment. Philip is an artificial poltergeist an egregore or artificial intelligence created as an experiment by a group of Canadian parapsychologists during the 1970s. It was that, as a result of their experiment, that the human can produce spirits through expectation, imagination, and visualization. The members of the experiment proposed to attempt to create, through intense and prolonged concentration, a collective thought form. All 8 participants were members of the Toronto Society for Psychological Research, and none were psychically gifted. The group first fabricated the fictitious identity, physical appearance, and personal history of their Philip Ilford, who was born in England in 1624 and followed an early military career. At the age of 16, he was knighted. He had an illustrious role in the Civil War. He became a personal friend of Prince Charles, which would later be Charles II, and worked for him as a secret agent. But Philip brought about his own undoing by having an affair with a gypsy girl. When his wife found out, she accused the girl of witchcraft, and the girl was burned at the stake. In despair, Philip committed suicide in 1654 at the age of 30. The Owen Group began conducting sittings in September of 1972, during which they meditated, visualized, and discussed the details of Philip's life. Although no apparition ever appeared, occasionally some sitters felt a presence in the room. Still, others experienced vivid mental pictures of Philip. After going for months with no communication, the group attempted table tilting through psychokinesis. This activity, popularized during spiritualism seances, involved people sitting around a table and placing their fingertips lightly on the surface. The table tilting practice was suggested by the British psychologist Kenneth Barcheldore, who speculated that some of the group members might have skepticism concerning their ventures. He felt the seance setting possibly would produce a communication with Philip, which was the sitter's expectation. Within weeks after changing to the seance settings, the group established communication with Philip. They engaged Philip in a table rapping session where he gave yes and no answers. Philip answered questions that were consistent with his fictitious history, but was unable to provide any information beyond that which the group had conceived. However, Philip did give other historically accurate information about real events and people. One session was held in front of a live audience of 50 people and was videotaped to be shown on television. In other sessions, sounds were heard in various parts of the room, and lights blinked on and off. The levitation and movement of a table were recorded on film in 1974. Philip seemed to have a special rapport with Iris Owen. Some members thought they heard whispers in response to questions, but efforts to capture them on tape were inconclusive. The group hoped their experiment would help in the study of the phenomena of poltergeist, hauntings, and spiritualism. Their findings appear in the work Conjuring by Philip, by Iris Owen and Margaret Sparrows. The results from the Philip experiment encouraged other groups in Toronto and Quebec to attempt similar ventures. The fictitious entities were Lilith, a French-Canadian spy during World War II, Sebastian, a medieval alchemist, and Axel, a man from the future. All personalities communicated through their own unique raps. And by the way, the reenactment is available on Esoteric-Truth Radio's YouTube and Facebook page. Now I have to seriously ask, who is it that is completely non-believing in any of this? So I'm going to bring in my co-host, Scarlett.
Hello.
Hi.
I would not say I'm completely non-believing, but I will say that it freaks me out. Just the concept that something this huge exists, or multiple huges exist. I mean, it's literally everywhere and in everything. While I was researching for tonight's show, because you are the one who brought egregores to my attention in the first place, Trinity, and I would like to thank you on a double-edged sword for that. Thanks, and oh, so not okay. But while I was doing my research for this, I came across the egregore itself can be traced back even into the writings, the texts in all the Abrahamic religions, Christianity, Judaism, Islam. It's there, and you can find it in Greek, you can find it in Hebrew, and you can even find it in Aramaic. Now, I do believe it's Hebrew. It is written in there as IR or ER, meaning or and it translates specifically as watcher. So that takes you right back to what you were saying in the introduction of Egregore, that they are watchers. And they do tend to be mindless, I guess, for the most part. And they go through phases of their development, of their creation. And really what it starts out as is a sigil, like you were saying. And that is a symbol. So a symbol or a glyph. And even when you hear the word glyph, you're instantly taken to hieroglyphs in the pyramids. Pyramids in and of themselves are sigils or symbols or glyphs. So we're looking at something that has existed in mankind's consciousness, our awareness, since long before any of us were completely aware, long before we even had the communication, the vast global communication that we have now. When researching Egregore on the internet, which is our latest, greatest form of communication as a species, it's really still even hard to find anything. And it wasn't until even the 80s when Egregores really became a part of conversations in esoteric circles. And that is exactly where they reside. Those are the people who are aware of their existence. There are 4 basically classes of these thought forms. And it starts with the sigil, which is the symbol. And it's in your everyday. You see it, it's in your awareness. And what I have here are the 4 classes of the thought forms. And the sigil is basically it can be used in a spell. It can be used in magically charged intentions. So that even translates to prayers. Then it takes the form of servitor, and that's a semi-autonomous thought form capable of performing complex and repetitive tasks. So a servitor, right between servitor and then Egregore, which is the next one, is where the Philip experiment would fit in. It's that semi-autonomous and performing complex and repetitive tasks. Basically an interactive intention which persists longer and can do work for you. Then we have Egregore, fully autonomous being, such as an angel or a demon or another spirit. Egregores themselves, if you look into the organized religions of the world, an Egregore would be what you would consider the assistant to the Godhead.
Hold on, one second, we actually have a caller.
Oh, awesome.
Hello, welcome, caller.
And a very pleasant good evening to you, if you can hear me. Oh, wonderful.
Yes, I can. Fine.
Fascinating topic. I read about it on Hernando's Hideaway. I've been having some technical problems at this end, though, so I may have missed a lot of what it was you were saying. In looking at the Philip experiment, it seemed as though there were only 3 possibilities because no one's had any luck coming up with hoax or fraud on it, as far as I can tell. Either they've created a ghost, a spirit called Philip, or the power of their minds are causing the effects that we see, the jumping up of the table and all the rest of that, or through the seance methodology, they've called up, I don't know what else to call it, but a demonic spirit, a demon of some sort, that is filling in for Philip and in the other experiments around the world. Was there a general agreement on to which of those three were more likely?
Well, they actually tried to figure out what was going on, because when they tried to do it in just a normal term of a thought of experiment, it seemed to make everybody really uncomfortable. So the one thing that everybody would be used to seeing is a seance. Since the beginning of time, people have been able to sit around a circle and try to conjure up spirits. When they made them in a more comfortable setting, it was easier for them to think a little bit better. Now, the thing with Philip is that when they had the yes or no answers, with the Philip experiment, when they had the yes or no answers, the only people who knew about Philip were the people that were in the seance. So he was getting asked questions about his past, which this is a supposedly a non-existent being, was answering them correctly about everything that they all knew was to be true. This is not, I checked as well. I was trying to find out, was this actually a hoax? It wasn't, and it's getting really, really good. So I'm hoping that they're doing this.
I don't expect it. I'm not considering that it's a hoax, but I don't know which of the three force ideas, I guess, I don't know how else to put it, supernatural ideas, look to be the most popular. If the 8 people were creating the effects from their minds, they would, of course, know the story of Philip. If there actually was a Philip that was created by their minds, well, that Philip would know. And if it was a demon, of course, the demon would know. Right. So I don't know which one it is, but I'm sorry for the people that think everything has to be a hoax. That just doesn't seem to fit.
Right. And there are these experiments that seem to have been going on, and I find it weird that every time I try to look up a subject, I find something that I've never heard of before. And I'm like, how did I never see this in any part of a community or any type of research on something that I think has importance in just day-to-day life and magic?
So, it's not as though it's brand new.
Yeah. No, it's not brand new at all. It's not brand new at all.
Well, thank you for that. I'm sure you want to get on with your show.
Thank you so much for calling in, and for Hernando's Hideaway, by the way, the creator here. I gave you guys a shout-out earlier today, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you for calling.
A pleasure. I enjoyed it. Bye-bye.
Yep, bye-bye. Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
What I would like to say in response to Charles' question is very specifically, because I am put on hold when the caller calls in. What I would like to say is, Charles, how much would it freak you out to know that it's actually legitimately all three of your suggested options?
See, I didn't really know how to take that, because in all actuality, everybody has a preconceived notion about how this could be done. And this goes into astral projection. This goes into a lot of people that know how to do that they meet people in another plane and they don't know who they are. A lot of people suggest that these are egregores, made-up egregores. But we have to give them, and I'm hoping that we only have 10 minutes left, but I'm really hoping that we can get into the fact that their amount of power and how they gain access to power, how that becomes something. I brought up the Santa, which is one of the largest outside of the 3 religions, the largest egregore.
And which is actually the most uncomfortable for me personally. So, but I think what we should do really quickly before Charles called, I was going through the 4 stages, and I think that will help a lot of the listeners to sort of grasp the concept completely. Now, we had sigil first, which is the symbol, the glyph, and then the servitor, which becomes sort of the energy that you've created because of focusing on that sigil or symbol or glyph. And that energy then works towards the goal you've set, your intention. And that, once it has received enough energy, is what turns into the egregore, the fully autonomous being, such as an angel, demon, or other spirit. See, Charles, all 3. And at this level of complexity, they're no longer servants who work for you, but they're an equal part that partner with you. So that's a good point, where who is it that has given the concept of that egregore out to the masses in order for the masses to give the energy to the sigil, to the servitor, to create the egregore. Because just a small group of people could not conjure enough energy to create the egregore on their own. They need masses of people, hundreds of thousands of people to create this egregore, which then partners with the people who conjured it in the first place. The last class of the thought form is a God form. That's when an egregore has received enough energy to become its own autonomous and self-perpetuating being. In other words, a God, which is no longer dependent on power from the outside for its continued existence. But I'm sure it still probably enjoys it. I mean, that's just how it goes.
That's where I do. Now, that is where I come into the agreement that the three top religions have that. We have them in smaller senses, but like I said, I think that that's where Santa came from and Easter comes from. We can't truly identify. There's not one person on the planet that celebrates these so-called traditional holidays and can say that they know for a fact that what they're doing is correct, that they know exactly what they're doing. If people understood how egregores are originally formed and how we all participate, because everybody's like, oh, the Illuminati, oh, the pyramid, all this. Yes, it's repetitive, and yes, if you do enough research, you'll know that it's been in our faces for a very long time. But try to find out, which most of us can't, because I know I can't, unless you're in a very high echelon, to find out exactly who's behind that. Everybody has their let's say, secret of who it is that the egregore is. So if somebody comes up to me and says, oh, I think people in the White House are backing Lucifer, and I'm like, well, he could be backing someone, but I don't think it's Lucifer, and if it is, I don't think it's meant in the way that you're saying it. We all have little...
Then that also takes you full circle to Lucifer being an egregore. An egregore who has turned into a god form. I mean, it's a vicious cycle. And I was discussing with you earlier tonight, this really is, no matter what, like I shared with you, I was raised in an evangelical Christian church, and I was not allowed to believe in Santa Claus. December 25th was Jesus' birthday, complete with birthday cake, candles, and the happy birthday song. There was no such thing as Santa Claus in my reality as a child. I felt in those years that I was robbed of something everybody else had. And as a mother, my first son was born December 1st, of course, perfect time of year. And I even told my mother, if you tell him there is no such thing as Santa Claus, I will disown you. My house would freak out even the most Christmas time loving person, because there is Santa everywhere. I adore Santa Claus. And we had the discussion. Santa Claus is an egregore. So I swapped out one egregore for another one, thinking that was going to make me feel whole and help me feel complete.
Right. And that's the tendency of how we do it. And people, if they just saw, if we know that December 25th, which I don't know of any Christian that I talk to that would actually really tell me December 25th was the birth of Christ. So not only are you pushing for something that you now know is non-existent, because that's not correct. History has repeatedly shown that date is absolutely incorrect. Then if you're celebrating, if you're taking the time and the effort, the family meeting, that's what the egregores, that's how they grow, is by thought form. And if we bring about a constant thought form, and it's a worldwide thought form, this isn't something that's just in the United States or just in England. This is a worldwide thought form. And we give it a certain amount of power once a year. And including children, by the way, people really don't understand that. I was explaining to Scarlett earlier that's the possibility of how children see the boogeyman. So you tell your kid about the boogeyman, or they see a scary movie, and now they see things in their room. They see things under their bed. Things are shaping in front of their faces. And we're like, oh, kids, you guys are so silly. They're actually forming with their minds because they're stronger than most of us. They're not pushed into a bazillion things like we are as adults. They have a much
right. They're not
polluted
polluted and diluted with all of the things that we face as adults. They're still pretty pure and innocent.
Right. So children have more of a tendency to produce egregores. So when you go ahead and you tell your kid the boogeyman's going to come and get you if you don't put your toys away, and then your kid doesn't want to go to sleep at night because he or she physically sees something in front of them, their mind, their concept, their respect for what it is that you told them, and that fear, they live on that fear, and that's how it's given power. So if you're willing to tell your kid about Santa, if you're willing to tell your kid about, chocolate pooping rabbits for Easter, if you're willing to do all of those things, then deal with the repercussions of the actual egregores that come from that. There's none of those stories that have an original, that doesn't have an original horrific story, including Santa. That whole thing about, him watching you when you're sleeping and, you're not going to get anything this year. That's a horrible thing.
I happen to know the lyrics to that song by heart. So he sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good, so be good for goodness sake. And that rings true in those children's heads all year long. It's not just at Christmas time. And parents will pull that out of their hat, their magic parenting trick hat, and say in, March, Santa's watching you.
Yep. Especially around the holidays, and we don't realize that is an agenda, first of all, that we're pushing, but that there is a being that we do not know. We do not know. I seriously, there cannot be 100 malls with a bunch of people that are dressed like Santa. We know Santa's not real. Adults know Santa's not real. We all learn that at a certain age. That's fine.
Now, hopefully my youngest son is not listening to this. So.
Well, if my girls are listening to this, they know they're like high-fiving each other and say, yeah, you go tell them about Santa.
That's different. But no, I think you bring up a perfect point to actually kind of close out the show, even though I believe this is so deep. We are going to take this over to Skype, so you can get that information in a minute. But the point that just kind of like struck me was this is the... Oh, hold on just a second. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. So we have this clear-cut understanding about how the entire Christmas thing works.
Right. So what it boils down to is that this time of year, you will find on Facebook, Twitter, social media in general, people are really up in arms about stores being open on Thanksgiving or early Black Friday sales. People will write things about, Black Friday, the only day that you trample people to death, the day after you give thanks for everything you have while you're trying to get the best deal on things you don't. And that is what we feed. That's the evil, negative, dark, heavy, oppressive egregore that they are, that has been a part of our consciousness and our awareness.
Right.
So, I think that's a good representation. Santa Claus is an egregore. We feed him all year long, but especially this time of year. And this is when they say, goodwill towards men, and all we want to do is get the best price on that 32-inch flat screen.
Right. And believe me, I think that this conversation definitely needs a little bit more discussion. I want to thank everyone, by the way, including our caller, Charles, and Hernando's Hideaway, everybody there that's listening. I want to thank you guys for definitely participating. We will definitely have a show next week. There will be a part 2 to this conversation that will be available on our Facebook and YouTube page, including this recording. I want to thank everyone for participating. We had a great, great time. You can find us at Esoteric-Truth Radio on Facebook and on YouTube. You can get in contact with us for a guest spot if you would like one. Always participate in chat. And you guys have a fantastic evening.
Welcome to Esoteric-Truth Radio, the show without fear. There is no topic forbidden to us as we delve into the realms where no one else will go. Join us while we touch upon the issues others won't discuss. We are Esoteric-Truth Radio.